Introduce yourself.
My name is Kelly Mac McCoy. I started driving a truck back in 1974. I'll let you guys do the math to figure out how old I am, but we'll give you one little hint. I started driving at 21 years of age, which was then and still is the minimum requirement. So I've been driving a very long time.
What made you get into being a trucker?
Well, I come from a pretty rough background. I'll say a very rough background. I grew up in the Oak Cliff section of Dallas, and very rough. My dad was an alcoholic and pretty abusive. And so when I turned 21, which was then and still is the minimum age to drive interstate, I hit the road for a little bit of a adventure and to see the road out there, or see the world out there.
What are your driving accomplishments?
The main accomplishment, I would say, I drove probably 3 or 4 million miles. I really don't know for sure because the companies I worked for didn't keep track of it, and neither did I. So it has to be at least that much, though. So I drove all that time since 1974, those many miles. Never had an accident, which I attribute mainly to the grace of God, and I managed to still be alive all this time later when sadly many of the guys my age have been dead for several years.
What sort of driving conditions have you gone through that were difficult?
Oh wow, everything under the sun. I've driven 48 states and all kinds of weather conditions, the blizzards, hurricanes, tornadoes, and everything else. Back in the day, you didn't have the apps to tell you where the bad weather was, so we just kind of ran into it and dealt with it as we went along.
Have you had heroic or interesting encounters while driving?
There's nothing really that I would call heroic. A lot of interesting encounters, to be sure. A lot of crazy drivers out there. The first one that comes to mind was when I had probably 6 months experience. I was lead driver, believe it or not. Went down the Grapevine in California with no trailer brakes whatsoever. Young and stupid, passed up the brake check, and didn't see any California Highway Patrol cars, so down I went.
What kind of trucks can you drive?
Oh, pretty much, again, anything under the sun. I've driven 7-speed, 8-speed, 9-speed, 10-speed, 13-speed, 15-speed, and even 2-stick one time. But the only thing I haven't driven is an 18-speed, and that's probably my next truck if I go out and buy one.
What makes you a good truck driver?
Well, what makes me a good truck driver, again, is I attribute the fact that I haven't had an accident all these years to the grace of God, but I always allow a lot of space all around me, especially in front. That's probably the number one factor as far as what I can control that's kept me from having an accident.
How would you describe your personality?
Well, it's easier for somebody else to do that, but I would say I'm very outgoing, uplifting, positive, all those things, but I actually probably like to keep to myself, believe it or not, so I have that dual aspect of my personality. So, but just don't get on my wrong side, that's all. I'm one of those people when, I'm that way most of the time. Let's get on my bad side and then look out.
What is the toughest thing about being a truck driver?
The toughest thing about being a truck driver by far is trucking tends to be an all-consuming occupation, whether you're over the road or local. If you're over the road, you're gone all the time, you're away from your family, you don't really have a life. And even if you're local, it tends to be consuming. You get up early in the morning or late at night, whatever shift you have, and you work all the time. You come back home and you crash for 4 hours and get up the next day and do it again. And it's often 6-7 days a week, as many hours as you can put in. So it tends to be all consuming. That's it.